Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Thinking Outside the Blocks with our friend Charting Man Dan. How you going, Dan?
Very good, Alex. Good to see you.
Thank you. And today we're going to talk a bit of everything. So a bit of enlightenment, meditation, how diet and lifestyle can affect all these things, and some of our experiences. So do you want to start off, Dan, and talk about maybe some of your experiences and what led you to being open-minded and a bit more enlightened?
Sure. As my travels definitely had a lot to do with it, where I was reading a lot. So, obviously, reading and gathering information in topics that I was not aware of previously. And those are books, again, on lucid dreaming and books on just more spiritual Native Americans and medicine men and things like that. And in combination with that, my diet changing to eat really good food and just being in the zone. And I made a video with a neurologist, one of our members, talking about being in your flow and reaching that flow state. And there's many different ways to do that, and everybody has their own way to do it. And for me, nature is a huge part of it, being out in nature. And a lot of people with meditating, they make a routine of it, and they set time aside and they go to their room and they meditate. For me personally, it happens naturally when I'm out in nature by myself and I'm just watching the sunset and watching all the animals. My mind just stops and I reach that flow state where all that brain activity slows down. And again, it had a significant impact on my life in terms of just blocking out the noise and keeping perspective on everything and realizing what's really important and what is not worth stressing over and losing sleep over.
Yeah.
So I know you're a meditator yourself. And what's your routine with that?
I was just going to say, I guess to start off with my journey, watching all the documentaries and becoming really open-minded, and a lot of those were food and diet documentaries about how eating very healthy and exercise can get all those brain chemicals in the right balances, reduce cortisol. And I think stress is something that so many people have today, in terms of staying up too late, looking at the screen, not taking that time to unwind. And I think the studies are, just 15 minutes a day, whether it's walking in nature or actually meditating, can reduce an entire day's worth of stress and cortisol hormones throughout the body. So I think that's something that's really important to get yourself in balance and have that sort of neurochemical soup in balance, have a healthy body in terms of exercise, and then you can move on to these other things, whether it be trading, or I know personally playing sport. I've certainly found myself in situations post meditation and going down the path and all that sort of thing, and the outcomes are very different when your mind's free flowing and thinking straight versus beforehand. For me, sorry, what was your question, Dan, to answer?
Just asking about your routine in terms of how you meditate and what you do with that.
So certainly a few years ago I was into it a lot more than now, where I'd put aside probably an hour a day, and it's like running a marathon, I tell people. So you're not gonna excel at it the first time, and for the hardest thing to get your head around for a lot of people is the noise. So when you sit down and try and quieten your mind's going to race to other things. And once you get to that point where you realize your mind is racing to other things, but you can sort of center yourself again and calm yourself down, it's different things to different people. And some people, it's just not thinking about anything, or some people it's thinking about an individual problem or trying to be creative, but having your mind focused on one thing. But I know that certainly getting to that point where you feel like your body is vibrating, and that's probably the closest I've got to. I know a lot of my friends that do the astral projection and that sort of thing, and I've never got right into that. So what's your experience has been with all that?
Well, vibrating is a good word, and chart guys Jason, my partner, would certainly, I when I convey that feeling to him, I say my bones are vibrating. And I had that feeling with Ethereum when I was sitting in a hot tub and said, all right, I'm going to increase my position 1,000%. And just reaching this state where you have a sure thing and a really good feeling and clarity. Clarity is probably the best way to put it. And I like one thing that you said about how getting your diet and your chemical balances is step number one to lead to deeper diving down deeper paths. And that reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs in psychology, where it's like you have the base, you need your safety and your shelter, and you work your way up to be able to reach self-actualization. And I think that is a very important thing where, like you said, a marathon, people shouldn't just be able to expect to close their eyes and meditate. It takes a lot of retraining your brain. Our brain is wired to work in this way, in this time, in this society of fast-paced, now, screens, everything's going on, and we have to literally rewire how our brains work to reach that state.
Yeah, and just on that brain rewiring, there's studies now that we can sort of affect neural pathways and rebuild brain tissue and that sort of thing. And whether that's training for sport, very specific individual skills like throwing darts, just one little motion, or it's running a marathon, or it's trading and, to do with those pathways. If you strengthen those pathways, that can get you closer to that state where you feel like it's on autopilot and it's flowing. And, as you said, that in the zone type of feeling. It's, a lot of it we don't know exactly how the brain works, but a lot of it we kind of do know that, hey, if you strengthen pathways or if you practice a skill 1,000 times, that's what is that sort of free-flowing feeling, I guess.
Yeah, essentially muscle memory of your brain.
Exactly. So anything else to add, Dan, in terms of tips for people, finding your happy place, whether it's going for a walk or sitting down to meditating or just taking some time to de-stress?
Honestly, food. I mean, like you said, it goes, for me, that was step number one. When I started working on a farm, I was still eating terrible. I was coming out of college and I ate terrible in college, Taco Bell, whatever. And, you hear everybody, it's words are one thing where everybody's telling you, you should do this, but feeling it, actually experiencing it and eating fresh organic food out of the garden and, being conscious and making decisions that are right for your body, and your body responds to that. A big step for me was listening to my body, where my body reacts to something. I zoom out of the situation and say, okay, what is my body reacting to this? What is it trying to tell me? Our bodies are very smart, but there's definitely a disconnect between our brains and our bodies. So I realized if I drink a significant amount of alcohol, my skin is going to react, and I started to notice that. So it's tuning into your body and listening to what it's trying to tell you, because your body does know best, and it will tell you what it wants in terms of food and nourishment.
Yeah, and in terms of that, it's probably another conversation we can have in the future. There's studies now about how water can take on different properties. Organic foods. It's not just the chemical mix of taking a multivitamin is probably that example where people think they're getting vitamins and minerals, but having that in a chemical form versus having it in that form that's grown in nature. That it's got the fiber, it's captured the sunlight, water. Love being put into it, I guess. So it's all those little things that science still doesn't know a lot about, but I think we're going to find a lot there in the future about not just the vitamin levels on a packet. There's a lot more to it that we don't know about yet. That's going to be very important to our bodies, keeping us healthy, but also reversing damage. And also just that mental state. We're already starting to see studies about things like cinnamon that can help, I think it was Parkinson's or Huntington's, but just all these different herbs, vitamins, things that we're going to find out repair our body.
Yeah, I'm an organic farmer and I love it. And I think that's a good way to fast track it, because you can do all these things at once. You're in nature, you're eating good food, you're, doing maybe monotonous tasks in terms of weeding or tending the plants, but that's a great way to shut your brain off and you get all the benefits of the food. And if I had to, give a crash course to someone on how to calm down your mind and get right mentally, physically, it would be gardening.
And best time of day, I used to find not doing it at nighttime because you're too likely to fall asleep. If you've got a free Saturday or Sunday, sort of after that breakfast, you don't want to have had a heavy meal or anything like that to really get in a really good place with meditation. Any tips there?
Yeah, it's just the most important thing for me is finding my happy place. The setting has to be right. If I were just to go into my bathroom and close the door, it probably wouldn't do it. I'd have to be, for me, it's nature, like I said. So I need to be in the woods. I need to be by myself. I need to be quiet. And the running sound of a brook or the birds chirping, that just adds to the trance for me.
Yeah. I've got my parents live out in the bush, so I go there, I go for a run, nothing but the birds and the wind, and then we've got an old trampoline where you can sort of sit and feel suspended, and that's my sort of place to zen for a nice 10 or 15 minutes to think about life's problems. Anyway,
there you go.
That's probably a good place to finish there, Dan. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation, guys. Let us know the topics below, anything you want to talk about, and anything you want to talk about to wrap up there, Dan?
I'm good to go. Looking forward to hearing people's suggestions.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys.